Hello and welcome to the strategic analysis video for the May 2017 strategic case study on soft drinks manufacturer Fizz. Now I'm sure that this is an industry that we are all somewhat familiar with. We all will have drunk soft drinks at some point in our lives because of course soft drinks cover such a wide range of products. Everything that is not tap water or alcoholic is considered a soft drink. But despite being familiar with the products of the industry, despite being familiar with the marketing techniques of the industry, very few of us probably know the real logistics behind it, and that's a lot of what we've been talking about throughout the preceding video series. And in this particular video, we're going to look at the key strategic models that you will have learnt during your E3 exams and applying the case to them. And how we're going to be doing that is by using what is known as the rational model. So this is where we are now, where Fizz currently is. We're going to look at various models in the here and now, such as the business environment and other internal analysis models. And we're going to look at where they want to be in the future and ultimately how they are going to get there using various strategy models such as generic strategies, Ansof's matrix, and methods of growth. And so to kick it off, we're going to look at where they want to be. Where do Fizz want to be in the future? And we're going to use models such as missions, objectives, governance, ethics, and stakeholder mapping to get there. So the first model here is mission statements. Now, mission statements are all to do with what the company is trying to achieve. What is its ultimate goal? If you are a tech company, you want to be the provider or the world-leading provider of high-tech, boundary-pushing technologies, driving innovation forward. If you are a car manufacturer, you want to build the best car possible for the public, for the consumer. If you're a soft drinks manufacturer, what do you want to achieve? Do you want to be the largest provider of soft drinks? Do you want to be the highest quality provider of soft drinks? These are all goals that companies in the soft drinks industry may wish to achieve. Now, the point of a mission statement is not to be too specific. It's supposed to be open-ended. It's supposed to be an ultimate vision goal for where the company wants to be. It's not specific as in by this time next year we want to have this kind of market share. That's more your short-term goals and strategies rather than a mission statement which is open-ended. So what comprises a mission statement? Well, Campbell came up with 4 key elements for good mission statements. Now, we weren't given a specific mission statement in the pre-C, but we were given an insight into the way in which the company operates. We were given an insight into some of the strategies of the organization that we can apply to these 4 key points. So why does the organization exist? Who does it exist for? What do we want to achieve in the long term? Now, if you recall in the pre-scene, it spoke about how the company wanted to consolidate its position to be one of the market leaders in the Nordland soft drink industry. But at the same time, it wanted to take advantage, to exploit the export markets. So what we can read into this is that the company is trying to become a larger, more powerful company. And how will they compete? The range of businesses that we are operating in. Well, we know, again, from the strategies that they want to become a more dominant force abroad. And that's how they are going to achieve it. They're already a major player in Nordland, but they have limited presence and exposure overseas. So they're going to compete by increasing their export market to break into different markets overseas. Now, those are the 2 elements that are perhaps more outwardly focused. What they are doing, what they're trying to achieve, who are they running for. But the next 2 values and policies are more inwardly focused. So what does the company stand for? What does Fizz stand for? Are they trying to be the highest quality producer of soft drinks? Are they trying to be the best value for money producer of soft drinks? And this can affect the internal culture. So obviously if they're going for value for money, if they're trying to be one of the cheapest producers out there, then that will foster an atmosphere of trying to save costs, trying to cut costs, trying to do things as cheaply as possible. If they are going for the position of the best quality producer of soft drinks, then that will foster a culture of diligence with regards to the kinds of ingredients they're using, to the production processes. And the same goes for policies. So these are the policies that staff at the organization are expected to follow. Now this may be in relation to the strategies, the values, and the purpose as well. For example, the company Johnson & Johnson, the United States pharmaceutical company, they have what is known as their credo, which is a several paragraph long spiel about why the company exists, about how they aim to be an ethical company that looks after its shareholders, that looks after employees, that looks after the general market, the general populace. And evidence of this can be seen in the fact that they were one of the first organizations to really take on board the idea of corporate social responsibility. They were providing aid, donating to the Red Cross, etc., back before corporate social responsibility was even a thing, back in the early 20th century, at the time of the great hurricane in Texas and other disasters like that. So again, this all links back to the internal culture and the kind of culture that we want to foster within our organization. Now at Fizz, we are a family company in a sense. It's a public company now, but it was founded by a certain family, and that family has been involved in the organization for generation after generation. And often when you have an organization like that, they have this culture of we're all a family together, we're all in it together, a very supportive network. And that can really help employees who of course are an important stakeholder to really thrive, because they know that they are supported, they know that the organization wants them to do their best, that the organization is going to provide them with everything they need to help do their best. So with regard to performing, with regard to staff and the company performing as well as possible, it is important to have a performance measurement system. Because of course, if we have our goals, we have our strategies, that's all well and good, but we need to know how well we are doing to see if we are on track, whether we need to increase our productivity in certain areas, to see if we need to improve the business in certain areas. And the main model that is used to measure performance is the Balanced Scorecard. I'm sure it's one you are all very familiar with. And the whole point of the Balanced Scorecard is to not just judge yourselves on your financial performance. That's very much the old world way of thinking, that if the company is making money, it's doing well. But there are other areas which indirectly affect financial performance that also need to be looked at. They need to be measured. They need to be improved on. And so the four main measures under the Balanced Scorecard are financial perspective, obviously. Now, admittedly, that goes somewhat against what I was just saying about how financial metrics aren't the only metrics that are important, but ultimately it is still a business. It still needs to make money. It still needs to produce a return for its shareholders. And so the various ways in which we can judge ourselves on our financial performance are things like profits, things like revenue, things like cash flow, and also the return on investment for shareholders. Of course, shareholders are a very important stakeholder, as they are to any publicly traded company, and therefore the stakeholder return on investment for shareholders is incredibly important. And another couple of metrics here are the gearing ratio. So that's in a sense how much of the organization is funded by debt. If the debt financing is far too high, we will find it harder to make more money in the long run. We find it harder to raise additional finance. We know that we have a lot of interest payments to make, which of course have to be made. You cannot say to the bank, we're not going to pay any interest this year, unlike shareholders who you can say to them, we're not going to pay any dividends this year because we need more money for this investment, but this is going to raise the value of the share price and thus increase the value of your holding in the long run. I've also put hedging on here, their ability to hedge, their effectiveness of their hedging, and that's mainly because of the fact that financial instruments, hedgings and derivatives were mentioned in the pre-scene, which is unusual. The past few cases have had nothing to do with that but the fact that it is so prevalent in this particular case leads me to believe that it is fairly important. Because if the company is losing money through investments, is losing money through exchange rate differences, then they need to adequately hedge against that. And it's worth noting that Quench, the competitor in this case, the larger company at that, does conduct hedging. It was also mentioned as a key risk for the organization that volatility in exchange rates has a significant impact on the business. It ranked 5 out of 5 for severity. And of course, their current control was to monitor the markets. But what does monitoring the markets really do? If you simply monitor that it's going to go poorly, or the value of the Northland dollar is going to decrease in the favor of people abroad rather than the favor of you, the fact that you monitored that does not really help. You need to adequately hedge against the negative impact of that. So the next one is internal perspective. So this is more to do with your employees, it's more to do with your operations, your productivity. And so various metrics that you can use to measure that include employee utilization rates and on-time job completion and job success. So that's, in a sense, you have a project or a particular production run. You're going to produce X million litres of a certain drink. You then need to monitor how well you did it to time. If your time was a week and you did it in a week and a half, then obviously you didn't do it on time. If you had a week to do it and not only did you not get it done in a week, you just didn't get it done, then obviously that is a failure in terms of job success rates. And employee utilization rates are relevant here as well, particularly for a manufacturing business, because you don't want your employees to be taking too much downtime. You don't want there to be too many instances where employees are on the clock, being paid, but they are not doing anything. And by calculating your employee utilization rates, you can perhaps change their working hours. So if they are there for 8 hours and throughout that course of the day there is 2 hours where they are not doing anything, you perhaps can look at ways in which you can reduce their hours down to 6 and then be busy the entire time by perhaps moving them onto a different production line when they would usually be having their downtime, or by keeping them on 8 hours and doing the same thing. Completing the job under budget is very important as well, particularly given that profits were declining or declined year on year in the pre-scene. Now, if that is because of issues with the market, perhaps competitors are taking some of Fizz's business, perhaps the market or the demand for soft drinks has decreased, so we have to change our selling price, then that's going to affect our revenue. But a lot of our costs will remain the same, and thus we need to look at cutting costs to maintain the same level of profit margin. And one way that we can do that is by ensuring we stick to our budgets, or perhaps even getting things done under budget. And the final one I mentioned here is employee satisfaction. Now that's because you don't want your employees to leave. Now, in this particular industry, where a lot of it is done by, a lot of the jobs done are more production jobs, it could be that the employees are not particularly skilled and therefore they can be easily replaced. However, there may be other positions, particularly in marketing, where it can be very competitive. and the other soft drink manufacturers may be looking to poach your top marketing guys, then it becomes a problem because of the skills that those people had, because of the knowledge that those people had, and they can be harder to replace. And that, of course, may not just affect your company there and then when they decide to leave, but also the person that you bring in has to be trained up. They may not have the experience, they may not have the knowledge of the person that left, and that can have a significant impact on the long run. Next one here is learning perspective. So this is to do with innovations, this is to do with development. I spoke in the internal perspective about the skills, the knowledge and the experience that certain members of staff may had, and the learning perspective is all about ensuring that you get more employees to that level. The more you spend on training them, the more you spend on teaching them new skills, the better and more productive employees they're going to be in the long run. And finally, the customer perspective. So this is all about your customers, how happy they are, in the same way as employee satisfaction is all about how happy your employees are. And ways in which you can measure this are your number of customers and also the number of lines and products they take. Now, Fizz produces several different products. If you have one customer that only takes one particular product, why do they only take one particular product? Have their in turn customers only like that particular product, or are they just not all that big on doing business with Fizz? They just want one particular line. Why can't we sell them more of them? We'll increase the value of that customer from a customer product profitability sense if they take on more than one product. Also, we have to look at customer satisfaction. That could be by a survey. It could be a survey of customers, as in bars and restaurants, hotels, supermarkets, wholesalers, or it could also be satisfaction of the consumer. How many people like our drinks? What is the consensus of the consumer with regards to fruit or fizz cola? And also the number of complaints. Now, the less complaints you are getting, the more successful your drink is with the consumer, with the customer. Next thing I'm going to look at is governance. Now, governance is the way in which organizations are directed, administered, and controlled. Now, it's worth noting that it is a UK code of corporate governance and thus only actually applicable to UK public companies. Now, whilst we are a public company, we are not based in the UK, but that does not mean that there are things that we can learn, because of course it's all about the ways in which organizations are directed, administered, and controlled, with the aim of ensuring the company does what is right for all stakeholders. So there will be things that we can learn to ensure that our stakeholders are satisfied with the organization to the best extent that they can. And there are various things that make up the code of governance, such as having a separate chairman and CEO. This is, of course, because the CEO is the head of the organization and the chairman is the head of the board. And the board tells the CEO how to run the organization. So if they were the same people, then of course you have a conflict of interest, because the CEO/chairman would then be deciding on what the company needed to achieve and then implementing it at the same time. So perhaps they will set themselves lower targets that they know that they'll be able to achieve without working too hard. Independent non-executive directors. Now, non-executive directors are people who are not directly employed by the organization. They are people who have experience in running organizations, people who have experience in certain industries, who are there to act as a control, to ensure that the executive directors, the people who are employed, are being paid, do get bonuses from the organization, are running the organization fairly for all shareholders and stakeholders and not just for themselves. And the main way in which they do this is by having a focus on risk management and also by sitting on the audit, nomination and remuneration committees. Now, these are essentially the different committees that are in charge of checking that the company is not doing anything that is illegal or unethical. That's the audit committee. The nomination committee are responsible for ensuring the right people are elected to the board as executive directors, be they from a different company or from within the organization, ensuring that they have the right level of skills to do the job and they're not just someone who is the son or daughter of the owner or the CEO. And finally, the remuneration committees are in charge of deciding the pay for the executive directors. If they haven't done enough to deserve their bonuses, then the non-executive directors are the people who say so. And this also relates to disclosing the names and the pay of the directors, not keeping it hidden. They must publish the reports so that everyone can see how much the directors are being paid. And this, of course, adds an extra layer of transparency to the organization. If the organization is doing poorly, if the organization is failing and as a result has to lay off loads of employees, we have to make sure that the directors are not being paid an ungodly amount of money, because we know we have to publish it. And if we publish the fact that our directors got 10 million Norton bonuses this year each, even though the company severely underperformed and had to lay off hundreds of employees, then that will not look good to the public. The public will be cross with that. The employees of the organization will be upset with that, and rightfully so. And other things included here are ensuring that we meet financial reporting standards and that all the directors have got the information they need for decision making, and that the directors involved in the decision making are not being overpowered by one particular voice in the room. For example, we know that one of the, or not the founder, but a member of the founding family sits on the board in this organization, and ensuring that they are not too powerful. And the final thing includes regular meetings with institutional shareholders, maybe pension funds and companies like that, and making use of the annual general meeting, which of course is where every single person, even if you just own one small share of the organization, every single person can attend and make their voices felt. And there are a few governance issues that we can apply to the organization, to Fizz. For example, the independence of the chairperson. Now, the chairperson in this case is a member of the clan family, who of course own 18% of the shares of the organization, and they are also the founding family, the founding members of the organization. So that's not to say that he is not qualified to be in that position, or is not qualified to be a member of the company, but we have to wonder about his independence. Our chairperson is supposed to be independent, and yet he is a shareholder. So is he truly independent? Arguably not. Could be that he'd be better suited to be the CEO, because the CEO is allowed to be someone who is directly involved in the organization. However, as a member of the clan family, this company being the clan family's legacy, it's unlikely that he will want to do anything that will damage the company just to benefit himself, unlike someone who is not at all tied to the organization, but just happens to be a shareholder as well as the chairman. And so that does mean that there's perhaps less potential for the agency problem to arise here, because a member of the clan family will want what is best for the organization. And as the chairperson of the board, they are responsible for running the board. And so the board that contains executive directors and non-executive directors is going to be, in a sense, controlled by a person who does want what is best for the organization. They also have a good mix of non-executive directors and executive directors. They have 5 of each, but of course they could possibly bring on another non-executive director to ensure balance, because of the fact that the chairperson is a member of the clan family. A couple of things that they could do better as well is that there needs to be more formal reviews of risk. Now, it's not to say that they don't, but it was not mentioned in the pre-scene. There were quite a few risks when we were going through the risk register that were not accounted for. And also the controls in place were perhaps not good enough. Again, I mentioned the volatility of financial markets and the currency markets. Monitoring them is not necessarily the best course of action because it won't mitigate them. Whereas if they did more with regards to hedging, it may mitigate the impact of that volatility. And also, I spoke about the importance of the remuneration, nomination and audit committees on the previous page, and yet in the pre-scene there was no mention. So I hope you've enjoyed this sample video and more importantly found it useful. Before I go, I'd like to quickly tell you about a few of the products that we do here at Astranti Financial Training, specifically for our case study courses. We have a study text which details all the key theories in which you will be expected to use in your case study exam, as well as details of how to approach the pre-scene and the case study. We also have a series of course videos detailing how to answer case study questions. This is actually an area in which many students struggle. Most of the scripts that I've seen, the failing scripts that I've seen, has actually been due to poor case study technique rather than lack of knowledge. We also have a series of pre-scene analysis videos based on the current up-to-date pre-scene, detailing all the key bits of information and likely issues you may face in the exam. Next up is the industry analysis, a pack detailing information about the industry that the pre-scene company resides in, information about the key players within that industry, and more background information on the industry in general. We also have a range of mock exams created for each level and based on the current pre-scene, which is a great way to get some practice in before you sit the real thing. We also offer marking and feedback on those mock exams so you can see where you are going wrong and where you can improve. Finally, we have the master classes. These are 2 one-day classes taken by our expert tutors to give you all the hints and tips you need to really add to your chances of passing the exam. Also, if you take our full course, we offer a pass guarantee, which, provided you have met all the requirements of the pass guarantee, you will get a free resit on the next exam should you fail to pass. So once again, thank you for your time. If you're interested in any of these products, please visit the website www.astranti.com for more information. Thank you.